So, Your Excellency, thank you very much for sitting down for this conversation. We're here in Mexico City at the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And just so that our viewers can find where we are, we're in the old chapter room, which is where the canons of the Basilica had all of their business. So we're a canon regular with an archbishop in a room that was for a cathedral chapter of canons. It's an appropriate place for our conversation. Your Excellency, please, can you tell us a little bit about what just happened today with the Mass of the Americas and the wonderful celebration we just experienced?
This is the culmination of a dream I've had for a very long time, to bring the Mass of the Americas here to the Basilica, the Insignia Nacional Basilica de Santa Maria de Guadalupe, here in Mexico City, where the apparitions actually happened. I was inspired by this idea for the Mass of the Americas way back in 2018. In our archdiocese, the Saturday before the feast day, before December 12th, we have an archdiocesan-wide celebration for Our Lady of Guadalupe. Started by some very devout parishioners in the archdiocese many years ago, maybe 30 years ago. Begins with a procession at 6 o'clock in the morning from a parish south of San Francisco. They process for 8 hours with all the celebrations, with the big carols on horseback and the mariachis and mariachines and all that. They arrive at the cathedral at 2 o'clock and we have the Mass. I was looking at the calendar that year, at the beginning of the year, to just kind of plan out everything that was happening. And I noticed that Saturday was December 8th. So my immediate thought was that since it's still a holy day of obligation in the United States, because Immaculate Conception is our patroness, and we're going to be having these Guadalupe celebrations, patroness of Mexico and all the Americas, I needed to do something to elevate Our Lady as a source of unity for the Church. With all the polarization that's happening now, and the divisions and controversies, people from different nationalities, both sides of the border and all that, I thought Our Lady will bring us together. We all love Our Lady. I thought then that maybe I could commission a new Mass through the liturgical institute I founded, the Benedict XVI Institute for Sacred Music and Divine Worship. Commission a new Mass of sacred music, but incorporating the sounds of the popular hymns people sing for Our Lady of Guadalupe, especially here in Mexico, and especially that Guadalupe hymn, the melodies and just kind of the whole kind of sound of that music. So I asked our composer in residence, Frank LaRocca, to do that. So Mr. LaRocca was not familiar with Guadalupe traditions. I'm from Southern California. I was the pastor on a parish on the Mexican border for many years, so I became very familiar with the traditions. He did a lot of research and was able to produce this Mass of the Americas. It was really a spiritual endeavor for him. It was not just kind of an artistic project. But what I told him was this is an authentic sense of what enculturation means. I'll never forget the moment at our Ad Limina visit, the visit bishops do every so many years to the Vatican to meet with the different dicasteries and the Holy Father. Cardinal Sarah was the prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship at the time, and I still remember this topic came up of enculturation. And he just kept his head down and was silent. He would kind of let everyone drone on. Then when there was a pause, he lifted his head and he said, "Enculturation is not taking what's in the secular culture and introducing it in the Mass. Enculturation is introducing Jesus Christ into the culture. And once that happens, everything changes. Everything changes." And then he put his head back down. It's like oracle of the prophet, no more need to be said. But the Church has enculturated all through her history. She knows how to ingrain the gospel in the culture that she finds. So I told Frank to look at what the Franciscan missionaries did in California and other parts of the Southwest with the building churches, mission church architecture, right? We're so proud of that architecture in the part of the country where we're from in California, the Southwest. They built a traditional Catholic church, right? They didn't celebrate Mass in tents or in fields, but they built a church. But the church reflects the culture in which it is found by the colors and the style of art that grew up around it. So I told him that what the Franciscan missionaries did, using the sense of sight through architecture. I wanted him to do using the sense of hearing through music. And so that's what he was able to accomplish. It's a very beautiful Mass. I still remember the first time I celebrated it. I had a hard time holding back the tears.
I remember that too, Your Excellency. I wasn't there, but I've seen footage of that marvelous celebration at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Washington,
so
D.C.
this is another sense of unity.
Yes.
So this was in San Francisco, December of 2018, December 8th, 2018, Saturday, December 8th, 2018. And so it was composed in Latin, then some Spanish, a little bit of English, and then the Ave Maria, the Hail Mary in the Nahuatl language. He wanted to sacralize the language that Our Lady actually spoke to Juan Diego in. She would have spoke to him in his language, in Nahuatl. It was a very beautiful, mystical piece. I had received a request to celebrate a solemn high pontifical, traditional pontifical Mass at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. So the whole idea was this unity, Immaculate Conception in Guadalupe, right? And I had already scheduled the Mass for the Basilica. Then when I received this request, I thought that, well, maybe we can transform this into a traditional Mass form. And it did take a lot of work. So Frank had to compose a new Kyrie. The opening song, the introit, is one of these, something Frank learned that I didn't know about, the villancicos. These are popular songs that people would sing walking to church. And then once they entered church, then it was all sacred music. So this Cantico del Alba, this hymn to the breaking dawn. So that was the opening song. And then we had the Ave Maria as a communion meditation. So they sang the Cantico del Alba during the vesting rite, and the Ave Maria when I was unvesting after Mass. So we're able to move those outside of the context of the Mass itself. So it's also a sense of unity with the forms of worship of the Church, with Guadalupe, with our Catholic traditions, with people who love Hispanic ministry and Hispanic traditions and spirituality. So it's Our Lady unites us all.
Yes, amazing. So, Your Excellency, you obviously have a great love for Our Lady. What have you seen in this project of pulling together these wonderful ideas, these wonderful people like the composer and like the musicians who execute the Holy Mass, as we just witnessed so beautifully in the Basilica here, the new Basilica? What have you seen in the time that you've been working on this project? What have you seen Our Lady do? And how are you looking ahead to the big celebration in 2031 of the anniversary of the apparitions?
Yes, this is something that we're focusing on. Not too many people in our country know that Pope Francis called for a 9-year novena to prepare for the 500th anniversary of Our Lady's apparition there at Tepeyac. We're trying to do that then through our institute, through holding celebrations of the Mass of the Americas in different prominent venues. We held it we had it already at the Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington. We've had it at the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe in La Crosse on August 5th, Feast of Our Lady of the Snows. Actually, I was thinking about this, and then I later found out that they have a special privilege to grant an indulgence in connection with the Basilica of St. Mary Major in Rome, where that apparition took place. And then the real dream was to hold it here at the Basilica where the apparition actually took place.
Yes, on the Feast of Our Lady of the Most Holy Rosary.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we're using this as ways to promote devotion to Our Lady and awareness of our need to prepare for this great anniversary, the 500th anniversary of our apparition. This is really the beginning of Christianity in the Americas.
For sure.
And it was such slow going before then. And as I learned here, I learned a lot of things during this pilgrimage, one of which was the Bishop Sumarriga, the bishop here in Mexico, right after the Spaniards came, was ready to give up. He said, unless there's a miracle, we should just go home, because the faith was not being accepted. There was so much resistance. And then Our Lady appeared, and it, of course, completely changed. And it opened the floodgates for evangelization. So we're trying to hold up Our Lady as a force for evangelization. And we're trying to promote devotion through an enthronement of Our Lady of Guadalupe, as our traditional Catholic devotion enthrones the Sacred Heart of Jesus and Immaculate Heart of Mary. To also have an enthronement of Our Lady of Guadalupe in the home.
Wow.
And we're going to promote this and push it out on our social media, the kind of prayers that families can offer in enshrining an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, the about that point of evangelization, Our Lady's role in that, and how enculturation is a key factor of that. You know, you mentioned that when the Franciscans first arrived in the New World, and they began about 1523 in trying to evangelize the people, and as you said, Bishop Zumárraga was about ready to throw in the towel. So it seems like Our Lady had this important, really miraculous intervention that allowed that allowed the gospel to break through into the culture using some of the cultural language, but also some of the images and the prophetic messages from the Nahua people in order to allow the gospel to be understood by the people who were waiting for our Lord to come in this new world. Where do you think that in post-modernity, especially in North America, but maybe all over the Americas, where do you think Our Lady of Guadalupe can do that again? How can she do that again, this evangelization? What is it that we need to enculturate in the gospel today? That's a hard question, maybe, a big question.
Well, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the image of Guadalupe as the perfect blending together of the two cultures, the two civilizations, really. So John Paul in his Ecclesia in America, his apostolic exhortation after the Synod on America, speaks of her being mestiza. She's a perfect mestiza. So she's, then as someone pointed out in our pilgrimage today, something I never really noted, if you look at her face on the tilma, one side is darker and the other side is lighter. So it's just another example of merging the two people. Obviously, the indigenous people here saw symbols that resonated with them about her royalty, that she was expecting a child, but she was under the authority of the child with her bowed head and hands held in prayer. The Spaniards were the great champions of the dogma of the Immaculate Conception. It was still being debated at that time, and they were the great champions of that. Well, they saw symbols there too that resonated with the woman clothed with the sun from the book of Revelation. I think if our people nowadays can be open to learning new things, open to what history teaches us and what science teaches us, the phenomena of the tilma itself, but especially open to the message of this sense of uniting peoples. The Spaniards had the vision of basically expanding Christendom, establishing a new Christian civilization. But again, in a way that was enculturating with the people here. I think if we can look at Our Lady as someone who loves us all, we all love our mother, we all love the mother of Jesus, who's our mother too, that maybe it can soften hardened hearts and open closed ears so we can maybe understand each other better. And again, she's a force of unity. We call it the Marian Unity Mass.
Amazing. So we can watch out for those graces to be coming between now and 2031 on the wonderful 500th anniversary of this miraculous apparition of Our Lady. Maybe a final question, or not final question, but a final idea for you to reflect upon, Your Excellency. You had this insight that commissioning this amazing musical composition to sustain, to support, to surround, aid devotion during this the celebration of the Holy Sacrifice of the Mass. So this is a liturgical intuition that you had about honoring Our Lady in this way and making her message known in the current day. Obviously, she appeared and millions of people began to frequent the sacraments because of her apparition, that the gospel was heard, the message was received, and people began to flock to baptism and confession and the Holy Eucharist. Why is the liturgy so important in the contact the faithful have in the sacramental order? Why is the liturgy pivotal for that?
The liturgy has to be beautiful because beauty evangelizes. Beauty, so we have to work all three transcendentals, right? Truth, beauty, and goodness. There are people who read their way into the church. I wish there were more, but we're in an age where that's kind of difficult to happen. Often their minds are just closed to anyone else's idea that disagrees with them. The church is leading the charge in terms of goodness and all the care we give to the poor immigrants, people who are vulnerable and suffering. Although people don't notice it because we don't toot our own horn and no one else talks about what we're doing. Beauty kind of circumvents that whole your truth, my truth thing and kind of goes directly to the soul. You can't deny beauty when you see it or when you hear it. So it kind of fertilizes the soil of the soul to receive the seeds of truth. And those seeds, what's interesting, I learned a lot more about this on this pilgrimage. Those seeds were already present in the indigenous culture here.
Yes.
We learned a lot about the flower world prophecies, this world of what all is beautiful and tranquil, filled with flowers and birds, but very few can actually be worthy enough to enter that flower world. So there's sort of this sense of desperation. And only the God of near and far would be the one that could make them worthy, but it seemed just unattainable. So Our Lady tells Juan Diego she's the mother of the God of near and far. He's the one who can make you worthy. So all of these, the semina verbi, we call them, right? These seeds of the gospel were already in the culture. And Our Lady's message resonated with them and brought them in. So as secularized and post-Christian and even anti-Christian as our society has become, there still have to be some of the semina verbi, even in our own culture. And I think people cannot deny truth when it cannot deny beauty when it's before them. So this is another part of our mission as the Benedict XVI Institute, and I'm glad to see it happening in other efforts as well to enhance the beauty of the liturgy. We hear all these stories, right? People walk into church, they've never been to church before, never been to a mass. Mass is being celebrated correctly and very beautifully, and it converts them on the spot.
Yes, I've heard those stories too.
Yeah. And the young people especially are attracted to this. To me, the telltale sign is, so it's beautiful, and maybe they want something that's a little more classical or a little more otherworldly, but it's not just aesthetics, because when they discover it, then it's exactly what I said. Their soul is ready to receive the seeds of truth, and they accept the fullness of the Catholic faith. Even the hard parts of our teaching, they now see the wisdom of it. And sometimes they're angry. I'm sure you've heard them say this,
Yes.
I've been deprived of my Catholic birthright.
Yes.
When they understand the beauty of our liturgical, artistic patrimony, but also with regard to truth, this is happening at the same time. God has given us St. John Paul II with his theology of the body. Young people who discover that first say basically the same thing. Why didn't anyone tell me this before? It would have saved me so much suffering. So we have a lot to draw on in terms of beauty and truth. And if we do that and keep doing what we've always done so very well in serving the poor with the transcendental of goodness, I think despite how hostile and neo-pagan the society has become, I think people will begin to figure out there has to be a better way. And we see this already happening with the younger generation.
Sure,
We're hearing stories about how they're supposedly more conservative. To me, they seem to be going in two directions. Some are going more and more socialist and even avowedly Marxist, but others are going more in a reawakening of more traditional values and seeing the goodness of that and how that's what's really going to lead to happiness and the stability of a society.
Yeah, I think that they trust institutions more than maybe their parents' generation or the last two generations have. So they're less inclined to reject out of hand something that's coming from an institution as ancient as the church. So I think you're right in noticing that. It seems, Your Excellency, of course, you've known our Abbey community for a long time. Yes. Thanks be to God. We've had the joy of having you come and visit many times. Yes. In fact, you were at the dedication of the Abbey, the new Abbey Church, and you need to come back again soon, I hope. It's wonderful to see these points of light all over, certainly the American Church, your own archdiocese, and your project with the Benedict XVI Institute, and the work of the Mass of the Americas, and the Shrine of Our Lady Guadalupe, and what's happening at St. Michael's Abbey, these points of, let's say, Guadalupan light, where it seems like Our Lady really wants us all to work together so that the beauty that you mentioned and the truth that flows from it will really ignite the church, young people in the church, but old people in the church, all of us in the church, as we get ready to celebrate this wonderful anniversary in just a few short years. So thank you for your efforts, Your Excellency. Thank you for everything you do for God's people and for our Holy Church. We're we're really blessed to have you among our circle of friends.
Thank you, and thank you, and thank you to the Norbertine community. You too are a great blessing, not only Diocese of Orange, but all of California and beyond.
Thank you. Peace.